And welcome to another Biddle on Saturday, August 3rd, 2019. How is everybody doing? Everybody's so excited. All right, we are short some regulars this week. PZ, we are PZ-less. He is in Malta having a great time on vacation. Eric is on vacation as well. Joe's not going to be here, and our thoughts and prayers go out to Joe for his family. And also for the people in El Paso, Texas. So that is not a good situation. All right. This week, or this second week now, we are trying out Sauron Os. And a couple people went and talked about it last week. And this week, we're going to continue on with all of the rest of the thoughts we have for it. So, Dan, what do you think of Sauron Os?
I like that it uses the dashed panel, by default. I prefer a panel, so that was nice, I guess. And then when it comes to the theming, so you've got the dark theme, but I really feel I like a dark theme, but that might have been a little too dark. It was really dark, I thought. I'd probably personally, and the other thing I liked though was that it would switch based on your time, from day to night. That was pretty cool. But I'd like to be able to do like the Arc Darker or Arc Dark theme. And so if it could switch to that, that would be preferred for me personally. Then as far as apps, I mean, it's Ubuntu based, so you can install any of those. They had some nifty utilities though that I did like, and I did try Zorn Connect with my Android phone, and that seems pretty good. I mean, it's just basically GS Connect or KDE Connect rebranded, and so that's super handy, I think, to have available, especially by default installed. So I wouldn't be switching to it, but I can see there's a lot of polish on this distro, and it seems pretty nice from that standpoint.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of polish to it. Like I said last week, there has been a lot of work put into it since the previous releases, and the previous releases were okay, and they had some good things about them. But I think they went the extra mile this release. And I don't know if they went the extra mile. I won't say they put any more work into it than they did the last ones, but I'll say that it turned out better, in my opinion, than the last few releases.
Yeah.
One
Yeah,
thing
seems
that
nice.
I noticed, Dan, you had problems with the download. I had the exact
did.
same problems. So and maybe it's because we live in New York State. I don't know.
Nothing's possible there.
I did too. I had to get mine from SourceForge.
Yeah, that's what I
Okay.
had to do. It didn't.
That's interesting.
The download was saying like it was going to take 2 hours or 4 hours, and then it died.
Mine was going to take 2 days.
Oh, that's
Wow.
And then thankfully it failed, so then I did re-download.
It's probably 1 day quicker than me, Dan, so you're doing all right.
Well, Colin, I mean, check the source. Your internet is awesome, let me tell you.
Oh, that's because he's on the other side of the world, and
It's got to go to the moon and back.
Right?
yes, several times over.
All right. Joshua, what did you think of Sauron Os?
I tried Sauron Os before. I've always known it as the one of the like Linux main operating systems. It's kind of known that is built on Sauron. And I love the Sauron desktop. I love the themes. I love the apps. Everything is great about it. But everybody wants to get the desktop because they all love it. So it's just known with a bunch of extensions, really. And I'm trying to compile that add the themes and other stuff to make the Zorin desktop installable and other things, which I am working on as a project. And I am pending the GNOME extensions through extensions.gnome.org, and it's been about 3 weeks. So let's hope that finishes up soon. And thank you to all the Zorin developers. You all rock.
Agreed.
Yeah, thanks, Joshua. Peter, what'd you think of Zorin?
I actually went last week,
Oh, okay.
but I will add that in the last hour I broke Zorin.
Oh, nice.
You trying to break my record there, Peter, or what?
Very quickly, I went in. I turned it on for the first time in a week. I went to do the update, and I saw it went to the new kernel 5.0.023.
Yep.
And when I rebooted, it got stuck on the where is it? The GNOME Display Manager. I wouldn't get past that in the lines. So I've not even tried to fix that yet.
Oh, okay. I did do an update on mine, and it seemed to go okay, but yeah, that's not good.
Mine's an older machine with an older NVIDIA card.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have been
Oh.
updating it since I've had it on, and I've had 0 problems with it. So I'm not sure what went on there.
It might be an NVIDIA thing. Yeah, you mentioned.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
this
the
this
old,
has an
Magic
NVIDIA
Word
card, so
It's the old 340-107 drivers.
Wonder if it updated that too and
Hmm.
wiped you out.
One of the things somebody said this afternoon or a little while ago on Telegram was that Zorin now has the 5.0.0-23
Right.
Yes.
kernel. That I guess that just got put into it
Yep.
or updated.
I think Barb's got her sound on automatic adjustment. Has she? She keeps going up and down.
Probably, I'll change it.
well, Zoom has been known to change that automatically sometimes. So just
Yeah.
saying.
That's great.
I've never had a problem before, but let me go. Said it.
All right. While you're checking that, Vash, did you go last week or?
I did not. So
Okay. Yeah.
that is, I was doing a video, but then I realized that you have to verify your YouTube account before you can upload over 15 minutes. So I got to re-upload that at some point here. But the other unfortunate part is I was talking about 1804 LTS, so that's a little different now. But anyway, the most kind of things I noticed overall, obviously aesthetically looks great, very very smooth. Everything looks as you'd want it to. There were a few little hiccups, I guess, ultimately, that I did not really care for. One, I did not like the 2 menus, the little start menu type thing and the GNOME activity menu or something like that. I did not like that you couldn't find some things in the start menu that you could find in the GNOME activity menu. I also don't know why it changed from one to the other as the default for the super key when I ran the initial updates. But it did that for me because I even confirmed that when I was looking back at the
Vash, what is the default now for you?
for me now it is switched over to the activity menu.
Yeah, the same exact thing happened to me because I thought I was losing my mind. I thought originally that it had the super key was on the menu, and I'm like, where is the activities? And then I updated, and then it was on the activities. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it kind of threw me off. But it also, like I said, it really kind of was irritating that you could get to like the display settings menu from the activities menu, but you couldn't get to it from the other menu. You had to go to settings and then go from there. But that's, it's kind of a nitpicky thing. Most of the things I came up with were kind of nitpicky things just because the overall experience otherwise was so well put together. So just, sometimes a box, like there's a setting you go and you check a box and you hit apply and then the box shows unchecked. It's like, that's just going to be really confusing for somebody that's new to a system and trying to figure out what something maybe does. But it was really, those were the kind of the things that stood out to me just because the rest of the system is so polished that these weird little nitpicky things are kind of what stood out. But I mean, if you're looking for, something for the more long-term support, and you can use snaps or flat packs or whatever, if you need more up-to-date packages, then definitely a good option if you're going to be okay with the GNOME and the enhancements that they've done to it.
Well, that's the thing. It is a GNOME desktop, but I still say that you probably wouldn't realize it was a GNOME desktop unless somebody told you. It just looks like a because of the settings that they have changed and the extensions that they've used. It's hard to tell that it is GNOME.
Yeah, I'd agree. And for the most part, I think it would eliminate a lot of people's normal issues with GNOME. I mean, some people like it stock or, with a few extensions, but obviously they've done a lot more than that.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Vash. Eris, did you get to try Sauron Os?
I tried it very briefly. What I can say about the distro is that it's very nice. I think GNOME for me usually is not a very newbie friendly distro or like desktop, and this is the opposite. It seems very nice. Like the paradigm is very familiar. If you come from Windows, if you come from Mac, it doesn't seem too different. And I think that there's a lot of settings that are very nice addition to GNOME, like the accent. You can change the colors. That dark to white or white to dark, depending on the time of day. That's also a very nice feature. I wish I could say more, but I haven't really had a chance to play with it much. The past few weeks have been very hectic, but I also had the problem downloading it. But luckily, I used Tux Digital's UGET to come to save today, and I think I downloaded it in a couple of hours after I had like 3 connections going at the same time, and that's about it.
Very nice. Tony, I know you went last week. Do you have anything you would like to add this week, or it's all the same?
Everything's still the same. I've had 0 problems with any of the updates, but I don't run a graphics card other than the built-in Intel, so that might explain that. It is one of my favourite distros. I do really think it's good. I had no problems downloading it either, so I don't know whether that's an internet thing or maybe people are still on dial-up. I don't know.
All right.
I might be one step above the dial-up thing, but yeah.
Do it.
Thomas, you go last week or no? And you've got no sound.
He wasn't here
last That's not a problem, really, Dan, that he has no sound. I mean...
Yeah. Okay. While you sort that out, we'll skip over you. And Colin, you got anything else to add to your review? And you're muted.
Wow.
I'm 2 for 2.
I'll blame Rocco for that.
Yeah, okay. I didn't mute you, dude.
At the start, you did, mate. It could have been that.
No. I unmuted everybody, dude. Come on.
I actually didn't have anything to say last week. So I've been running Sauron all week. It's been running flawlessly. I didn't have any problems downloading it. So I don't know. Maybe this side of the pond's doing pretty well this week.
Awesome.
One for us. But just you touch on the, I think it was Vash that was saying about the Windows key changed. I think that changes when you try the different layouts, because that happened to me too. And you can change it back in the settings under panel, I think it is, and left super key chooses the Sauron menu or activities menu. So I think it doesn't change and honor the layout that you change back to. I think that's what happens. Not 100% sure about that, but I went and changed it back to activities menu because that's the one I like. So, but I like the fact that they've got these nice little subtle choices within Sauron to change things here and there. It's not overwhelming, but it's just the right amount of choices for just tweaking it the way you want it. And yes, like Dan said, they got the dash to panel, which is quite nice. And I did remember saying a little while ago that I wasn't keen on the Sauron themes, but I've noticed now that if you download a GTK3 theme from GNOME Look, it actually respects the themes, which I don't think it did before. I remember the themes were a little bit out of whack. on the previous version, but this one seems to respect the theme, so that's pretty good. I've tried the new Quokka. Don't know if anyone has seen the new Quokka, the Win one. That's quite a nice theme, and it comes up pretty nice. So, but besides that, I've thrown everything at it: Flatpaks, normal apps, .debs, and so forth. Everything that I can think of, and I've done video editing in there, and everything I can throw at it this week, and even mounting my data drive, and it's just handled everything pretty well. So I'm pretty happy with the way Zoran's running, and it's on my main system actually. I hopped on my main system, Rocco. So,
That's a shock, Colin. I mean, I can't believe it. I don't think anybody else here can believe it either.
Well, I don't normally do that on the main system, but why not? Yeah, it's running well. So I've got nothing but good things to say about Zoran, actually. It's set up really nicely with the panel at the bottom, so people are a little bit more familiar, which is the videos I do about Ubuntu.
Let me ask you a question, Colin. You recommend Linux Mint to people that you are close to, as far as so you can, give good tech support, and it's a good distribution for them to start out on. Would this ever take the place of that, or could this ever take the place of that?
Possibly, but I know what the GNOME desktop can be like sometimes, but Cinnamon to me, I don't find that it normally crashes much. So, and when you say you can give good tech support with Cinnamon, I don't even have to give tech support. So to get to that stage, I'd probably have to run it for about 6 to 12 months to really know whether it's a worthwhile distro to be able to be in that arena sort of thing. So, but so far so good. But I would still recommend Linux Mint Cinnamon at this point.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I will say that I really enjoyed your Linux Spotlight this week, Colin.
Thanks, Dan.
That was excellent.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun. It was awesome.
It was a good discussion.
You guys had a lot of fun.
It was a fun time.
I enjoyed it too.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Dan and Dan.
Thomas,
I also enjoyed your Debian videos because I'm right now running Debian, the same thing you're doing all your demos on.
Okay, cool.
You've been teaching.
Okay, cheers. Thanks, Dan.
Thomas, you get your audio fixed?
I think so, maybe.
Yeah.
Hey.
Awesomeness. Alrighty. So I did briefly try Zorin. I was kind of obsessed with trying to figure out how to package a Linux kernel this week. But I did briefly try it. I've tried Zorin in the past, and I've always felt that while it looked nice, it seemed a little bit slow, and I did not have that issue this time. It was really slow downloading for me. It took me about 3 hours to download it, which it is a slightly larger than average ISO at about 2 gigs, but it's not, like the 4 gig monstrosity that is Windows or something. Otherwise, I've always liked the way that Zorin looked with the icon themes and the dark theme by default. It would probably be like my number 2 or number 3 go-to distro for suggesting to newbies, because I feel like Linux Mint Cinnamon would be a little bit closer to the Windows paradigm as far as the way things looked. But it's not a bad distro by any stretch of the imagination. But just the simple fact that it comes with Play on Linux or Wine, I think it comes with one of the two, is amazing. And if you don't know how to set that up, is great. Otherwise, the being able to set your word accent theme or accent color, it seemed a little bit weird to me, because if you set your accent theme with the light theme on, then it does about what you'd expect it to, and highlighted things that changes the color, things like that. But when you have the dark theme, everything gets that the tinge of that color. So if it's the dark theme, you set it to red, everything gets a little bit of a red color, a red tinge. And that really kind of threw me off, because I was wanting a dark theme with just red highlight and not everything to have a red tinge. And And I guess there's a way you could probably fix that in the configuration files with the CSS or something like that. But I don't know CSS, and I'm not going to take the time to figure out what config files I need to actually tinker with because I'm lazy. But overall, it is a great distro. If you don't like Linux Mint Cinnamon and you're trying to get into Linux, I would definitely give Zorin a shot, especially this new version. Other than that, I don't have much to say. So,
well, I would agree with you, Thomas, that this is definitely becoming one of those that you would hand to somebody that's not familiar with Linux and they could run it easily. Whether or not, go ahead.
I would probably like hand them 2 different computers or 2 VMs running, one with Linux Mint and one with Zorin, and be like, play with it, see which one you like more. Because it's probably at this point down to personal preference between the two.
All right, Kevin, sir, how are you?
Doing good.
What's going on? Have you checked out Sauron Os on your new machine?
I grabbed the ISO and I did give it a quick spin in a VM, but I don't want to comment too much on it just because I didn't try it out for my daily driver for like a week or anything. The one thing I'll say is that they're doing GNOME in a way that GNOME probably doesn't want you to do GNOME, which is okay, and I congratulate them for, I guess, putting a new spin on GNOME. It's nice to see people trying to do things like that. So,
yep,
it's probably one of the toughest DEs to do that with, I would imagine.
Well, we talked about it last week that this is something that could bring more people to GNOME if they knew that you could operate like this in GNOME, because usually GNOME is known for not being able to change a whole lot unless you add a billion extensions and stuff like that. So we'll see.
Well, I believe, Rocco, Dash to Panel just had a major upgrade as well, didn't it? Was it Dash to Panel? I'm pretty sure I seen on OMG Ubuntu.
I don't know because I don't use Dash to Panel. So,
Rocco,
I use Dash to Dock, dude. I mean,
oh, Dash to Dock. Okay. Oh, it might have been that one. I'm not sure. No, I think it was Panel.
All right, Adam, you got anything you want to add from last week, or
no?
Thank you, Adam, for your support. I appreciate it. All right.
That's honesty.
He did not mince any words there. Thanks, Adam. Barb, you have anything to add? Nope. Okay. Dan?
Like I said last week, I thought it was a really good distro. It's kind of, I have no issues at all. Matter of fact, it's the only distro I have on a drive here that plays nice with Discord. All my other distros, the Discord audio is really crummy in it. So, it's a winner for me, and I would probably recommend it to somebody else that wanted to get off Windows and try something new. It's pretty awesome. I had a great experience.
Yeah, I think you could make a case where you coming from Windows into this could be comfortable for sure.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, it does Windows 7 type theming or XP.
Right.
All right, Dave, sir.
Like I said last week, until I heard you guys talking about it, I didn't know this was the GNOME desktop. I threw it in off of a live disk onto my laptop, and it ran fine. When I went to put it on hardware on my main rig, which is actually what I'm in right now, it didn't want to load. Now, I don't know whether it's how I burned the USB or the download, because I re-downloaded it and used a different burning program, and it fired right up. I have to say the install process was easy. The NVIDIA drivers loaded right in. It was so nice to be able to go into a terminal and say sudo NVIDIA xconfig, save it, log out, log back in, sudo NVIDIA settings, change the settings to where I want them, log out, reboot, and it came up flawlessly, which rarely happens nowadays with the newer NVIDIA drivers. It being stable that way, I actually pulled up my Ubuntu install script and just dumped a whole lot of junk on it real fast. Did all my sim linking in from my 3 other hard drives. Everything went through without a hitch. OBS, Simple Screen Recorder, Darktable, Inkscape, Kdenlive, anything and everything that I normally use got dumped in this machine, rebooted, came up fine. Everything works like a dream. I've actually spent some time playing around with the different menus, and while it will never make me like GNOME, I very much like Zorin. And I would have no problem recommending it to somebody who has a couple months experience. I'd still probably send absolute new people to Mint, only because the options in Zorin will get you into strange places faster than the options in Mint will. Places where they're not expecting to be.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that, Dave. It's a good comment. Yeah.
But it has updated flawlessly. It has run flawlessly. I haven't had any issues with anything I've tried to do in it. So I give mad props to the devs on this project because it just works.
Wow.
Very nice. Very nice. Chris, sir.
Hello.
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing just peachy. I gotta say, I'm starting to have a hard time deciding which distro I would go to if I ever went off Fedora, because there's just been getting a lot of good ones out there. I mean, between Salient and some of the other ones we've tried, and now Zorin, I went with the cinnamon flavor on this, and I got to tell you, I'm impressed. If you don't mind for a moment here, just of course the camera's all reversed, but that menu just kind of reminds me so much of an intuitive Windows menu. Yeah, I know, blasphemy. I'm sorry, but I like the way it's designed. I easily found what I wanted to get to and be able to change and update and what have you. The only thing that I find odd about this is that it's using kernel 4 point something or other. It's supposed to be a up-to-date system, and it's not using the 5 point whatever. Numbers don't mean a whole lot, so, and I didn't really see a problem with it. It's just the past 2 weeks on it, I've really liked it, and I'm using old crippled hardware on here. The BIOS is still giving me trouble with it on this laptop, and so it takes a little bit of time to boot up, but as soon as it comes up, no problems whatsoever, and haven't had a complaint. It installed nicely. I can't remember if I don't think I had to go in and modify the boot flag on the boot partition, and that was a plus. So other than that, like I said, I'm starting to come up with hard choices if I ever wanted to move over to something else. So.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Interesting.
mine did update this week. Thursday, maybe? I don't know which day it came down. It did update to the new 5.0
Yes.
kernel. So
Yeah, that's what mine's on.
Yep. Do you have something else, Colin?
No.
Okay. Steve, Steve's very own Steve.
Good evening.
How are you?
How are you?
Awesome.
Well?
What's going on, man?
Oh, been running it for almost 2 weeks on and off between that and my PEP. Like like everybody else, it installed real easy, typical of an Ubuntu base. I do like the theming, like everybody says, a lot better than what GNOME does. A lot of it just pops just from the little notifications with the shadow behind it. Really pops more than what I'm used to seeing, like on XFCE. Still, something was missing, so I installed ICE on it.
Surprise there, right?
It works, although the top title bar and that does not show. So to close it, you have to hit the super key where you get all the screens up there, or bring up the bar. Right now, I have the desktop setting for that's like kind of like Chrome OS like, which is nice. Trying to get my wife to use it. She's been in a mode this week where all the technology has been put away.
Yeah.
Because she was having problems with her Windows 10 picking up my Bluetooth speaker. So I said, well, give this a try. It works with it.
Right.
But
did you win?
No.
I have the same problem.
Not yet. Ask. She uses the Peppermint, the main one upstairs all the time when she does the banking and all that. Right. So she's used to using it.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, it's a gorgeous desktop. I'm on it right now. I was on my Peppermint, but as I've been kind of chatting with Mark and that in the room, it updated to the 5. In NeoFetch, it's showing me the 5.2 kernel, but they're telling me it should be 5.0, and it kind of borked NVIDIA, and I've been having just issues with it since. So I switched over to Zorin, but I installed Zoom, so that's why I was a little bit late. But yeah, I would easily recommend it for most new users. I mean, it's simplistic. It's easy to follow. Installing things are relatively quick and easy. I don't know if it's because of a different archive or whatever, but when you download a deb file, it looks like it goes right into the software manager, which gives it a different feel to it, like it's really installing software from a software manager. Yeah, I mean, it's still something about GNOME. I still earn from my my XSC, my Peppermint. Yeah, definitely I would be a recommend for someone that has a decent laptop or desktop.
Yep, it's for sure on a short list of good polish distros, I think. So
I think the only kind of issue I had for some reason, I with my Xfinity Wi-Fi, I have the 2G and 5G. And it was only picking up the 5G, and this laptop doesn't seem to work well with it. And I was trying to I was going to install Chromium, and it was showing me it was going to take like about 30 minutes. And I'm like, what? I'm thinking, what is it? And I had it connected to the Ethernet actually when I was doing that. But when I was doing Wi-Fi, I found out for some reason it wasn't showing my 2G connection. But I think after I rebooted, it was showing up, and I've had no Wi-Fi problems since.
All right, cool. Well, thank you. Big Pod, how are you this evening?
I'm okay.
Did you get a chance and you got any comments?
Already told what I think of it last week.
Yeah, I didn't know if you had anything further.
No, not really.
Oh, okay.
Nice. Thanks, Big Pod, for your effort there. Steve, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, but I don't have anything to add. I didn't try Zorin. If you looked at Discourse, you saw what I was fooling with.
Okay, well, I didn't look at Discourse for the last 2 days because I was pretty busy, but it's all good.
What's a Raspberry Pi fun?
Oh, excellent.
Nice. What is it that you're working on with it?
It's mostly my son. He is trying out the Raspberry Pi in different server applications like GitT and Nextcloud, and we're having issues with SD cards getting corrupted and after reboot and things of that fun nature. So it's a good time.
Good times, yeah. It's always fun when there's issues.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is our take on Sauron Os, and it is our first bi-weekly distro that we've done. So we spent 2 weeks with it, and that's the way we're going to go as going forward. So we will pick another distro, and we will go 2 weeks with that one. The first week, we'll let half the people go, and then the second week, we will let the other half go. So that means we have to pick a distro this week.
Clear Linux or Regolith, probably, because that's what seems like is most interested.
Well, what we did, Joshua, was we set up a little, because we got so many random requests for distros before, there was no structure to picking a distro. So basically what we've come up with is there is on the discourse, there was a forum post about adding distros that you wanted to try. And I also wanted to say that I talked to Eric Adams this week and asked him to put a little contact message box on the discourse forums to basically submit your distro. So instead of having a forum post listing certain distros out, if you want us to try a distro, go to discourse and submit the form, and it'll be sent off, and we'll compile them and add them to the list. So.
All right. Yep, and that's that for everybody. I gotta go. See you.
All right, Joshua. See you, man. So what we're doing right now is we have a list on the discourse, and I'm gonna pick 3 out of the list, and then we are gonna pick from them. So the 3 that we need to vote on are either Regolith, KOS, however you want to say it, or Endeavor OS.
What was the first one?
The first one was Regolith. Regolith is an i3 Ubuntu spin. Chaos is an independent KDE spin that has its own repositories. It's basically nothing but KDE applications. And then Endeavor OS is the virtual successor to Antergos. And I talked to the devs on Twitter this week, and because we originally had said they may not be ready for us to try it, and they said they are more than ready for us to try it.
Really? Wow.
So
I say let's hold them to that and go ahead and try Endeavor.
I agree.
You know, throw them into the fire and see what they do.
I agree with
Just
Endeavor
for the
too.
fun of it, because like they're brand new, so they could probably do with the feedback.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I
that's a
agree.
good point. Yep.
I think
Feedback
it'll be
is
We
very
should
successful.
endeavor to try Endeavor.
we should endeavor to try Endeavor. Right, Peter? You got it. See? You know.
Yeah.
And it gets us
Already
a little
starting
bit
with the
away from all the Ubuntu-based and Debian-based distros that we seem to be doing, which seem to be the majority of them anyway. So.
Yeah.
So this was, I guess, their initial release that we will be trying. They are planning updates for the future that obviously we're not going to get to experience in this version of it. So the desktop you're going to get is an XFCE desktop, I believe.
Yay.
And it will be basically pure Arch. That's what you're going to get when you install it.
Ouch.
So
Well, that's what Antergos was pretty
that's
much.
yeah, that's what Antergos was.
Yeah.
And Antergos was not my favorite.
We know, Barb. We know.
Well,
This
listen
isn't
to this
bad,
so
Barb.
far. It's a different installer. So
Different, I understand.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe, right. I'll have to think about it.
But I love what the guys at Endeavor are trying to do. So I agree we should definitely do Endeavor this week.
Okay. Chris, you got something?
No, that I was just raising my hand for voting for
Endeavor?
Endeavor. Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right. I didn't really check. Was there anybody that didn't want to do Endeavor?
Well, the only thing I want to say is Regolith has been on the list and been pushed for a while, but we keep putting that back. I don't know if it's because it's i3 or whatever, but I have downloaded that a few weeks ago. So, but I'm more than willing to try Endeavor. I just think I was just looking at there's little numbers next to the challenge suggestions on Discourse, Rocco. Does that mean people have voted to do that one? Or
No, that is actually the clicks for the link to go to that page. I'm not sure exactly. I don't know if that's a discourse thing or it was purposely put in there, but yeah, that's how many clicks that link got.
Okay.
So
if you look at DistroWatch, they exploded really quick.
Yeah.
Like most of the time, distros on DistroWatch, it takes them forever to hit 100, 200, so on. They got to, I don't even remember what number they're at now, but it's exploding.
Yeah.
They got some good bots.
For Endeavor, you're talking about.
They bought them off of Dolphin Oracle from MX.
Yeah, some of those MX.
And actually, I think they actually might have virtually bypassed the waiting list. Like they were on there for only like a month. Most other distros are on there for a few weeks. I might be wrong there.
It could be because it was a continuation. I mean, that's a possibility, I suppose.
Yeah, it might be. But they were on there for a very short amount of time, and most distros are on there for a year-ish. I know I've been on there for going on a year now. So, that's impressive in its own right.
Regardless, that is our pick for the next 2 weeks. So you have 2 weeks to try Endeavor OS. Hopefully it will be painless and we'll have some good feedback for them. It would be awesome if the devs would join us on here and we could talk about it.
Nice.
So we'll see what happens.
One thing I want to say, since I understand what Colin was saying about, we keep saying, Regolith keeps coming up. Maybe we should just make that the next one that we look at.
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to definitely keep that in the list of the 3 that we'll try. So another one will be added to that next, next 2 weeks. And then if you want to vote Regolith, then you're more than happy to vote for it. So it's nice that we have some type of structure, and then we each get to vote on which one we want. So
absolutely, at least it can't be forgotten anyway, which is good. So yeah.
And I think this is working better than spending most of the time on the distros, and then we spend 20 minutes arguing over which one we want next.
Yeah, it was kind of unstructured, but it was one of those things where we're, like I said, there's changes that have been happening to Biddle, and hopefully they're all good changes. But it's just like a learning process of how to do things and the best way to do things. So,
by the way, I'll be using Endeavor this week.
By the way.
So you're wiping off Zoran, right?
Birding tomorrow.
Well, I have a tough choice here because I have Sauron OS on the test machine, and I have one other drive on the test machine, and that is Farron OS. So I have a tough decision on which one to overwrite to place Endeavor on there.
I have the same situation. Do I get rid of Debian or Zoran?
That's tough, man. That is absolutely tough.
Flip a coin.
Just Farron's in chat, just saying.
I'm sorry, Farron, it might be you. I don't know. At least there's a 50-50 chance you'll stay on there, right?
I have a small bit of feedback on Endeavor already.
You can go ahead.
Sounds like work.
No, dude, it'll be fine. Trust me, it'll be fine.
Well, I mean, syntactically, Endeavor means an undertaking, right? So it just sounds like it's going to be a lot of work, Rocco.
It's Arch. No offense.
What do you say, Dave? What do you say to that? Yeah, you, Dave. Yeah, you, Dave.
By the way, I run OpenSUSE.
I thought he was going for Linux Hertz.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping for, but it didn't work out.
Well, I have been told so many times on the show that Linux shouldn't hurt anymore. So even though Linux is meant to hurt just a little, I have been proscribed from saying that.
Dave, I
Don't
think
change.
It's technology that hurts a little, actually.
Technology.
Yeah.
All right.
I think you can start calling those things medicinal, Dave.
So I have a few topics that I want to bring up. Does anybody have anything they want to bring up before that?
Yeah, I do, Rocco.
Do it.
I just want to know if anyone's noticed, because I've noticed a trend with the GNOME terminal in in Zorin, in Debian, that when you want to zoom the text in the terminal, it will Control minus will reduce it. Control 0 will bring it back to normal, but Control plus just brings the equal sign up in the terminal. It doesn't zoom it. So I don't know if that's a bug.
Plus.
No, to get to the plus, it's Control Shift plus.
Is it?
Yeah, that's how you actually get the plus sign.
But then why does it say when you hit
Control
on the-
Shift in that button, it'll zoom it right in.
But it says in the menu when you click on the view, it says Control plus.
Right. And how you get the plus sign is with the Shift key.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Fair enough.
But
depending on the keyboard.
every other app is Control just plus. There's no shift.
Yeah.
For me,
Every
it
app
works
I've
with
ever
Control
used
plus.
it's always the Control Shift plus.
No,
This is an outrage.
I think it's
There's a total outrage.
usually Control Shift and whatever.
Depending on what kind of keyboard you have.
Yeah.
Because for me, plus is without shifting the key. So for me, Control plus works normally.
That
Same
is
Control
really
minus.
weird. And what I find also weird is it doesn't
Control
work.
Shift key that's plus will just input me a star. because
Well,
that's my shift
then
plus.
whatever keyboard you have chosen for your system,
Standard quartz layout.
a US QWERTY.
Europe quartz
Right.
layout.
So for you, you don't need the shift to get the plus.
Yeah.
So however your keyboard selection gets to the plus sign is how you get to the zoom.
See, that's still really weird because if you do that in like Firefox, you use the exact same keyboard shortcut to zoom. Then if you do that in Firefox, it zooms and you don't have to hit shift.
Right. Because they map the
So-
equal key to the B.
But a lot of the,
say
because I'm
Control
sitting here and I opened up a Mate terminal, and you have to do Control Shift plus. But
Right.
to zoom it out, you use Control minus.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
So that's kind of
everything's
weird.
That's all
everything's-
depending on how your keyboard is set up.
I just use the default US.
it's US QWERTY, US QWERTY or whatever it is.
Yeah,
That's what
I just went into Firefox and Control Shift plus worked just fine to zoom, and Control minus worked just fine to unzoom.
Anyway, Dave, thanks for that info. That's good because I didn't know that, but I feel like I've been deceived because it says Control plus on the.
It does.
It works. It works both for me. So whether
Yeah.
you use Control and plus or Control Shift and plus, it zooms.
Mhm.
Both work.
Same thing for me. And then
Well, since it said plus sign, I automatically went with how to get to the plus sign.
Yeah.
Well, it says
It kind of makes sense if you
terminal.
know
It
it's
says
that way.
Control plus, but it's really Control Shift plus.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
Clear.
Control plus, but
Yeah, but then you could say Control
plus
Shift,
and it's shift.
Control Shift equals. It's saving a space. You know,
Yeah, also,
you
if you
don't
think
have to add in the shift.
If you have a numpad, though, I bet if you just hit the plus on the numpad, it would probably work the same.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. I just checked.
The numpad plus and minus don't work. It's same.
I would
In
assume.
Zorin it works.
I would assume that it is because the shortcut is better used for the plus on the top rather than the plus on the
is an
keypad.
uppercase, character, so you have to put the shift.
Yeah.
In Zorin OS, the number pad plus and minus work with the control.
It doesn't work on my system, and I'm using GNOME Terminal.
Yeah, me
So-
too. It's
Yeah, it doesn't work on
probably
mine.
isn't set up
It might-
for
And I'm
two
using
different
Mate.
keys.
It might be because I do not have a standard QWERTY keyboard. I have a US International keyboard,
Not-
which is really weird because it looks exactly the same except for like 2 keys.
Dave, it doesn't work for me on Zorin.
Oh, in the terminal it doesn't. No. On
Yeah,
Firefox
terminal,
it
my
does.
number
Yeah.
pad doesn't-
Terminal, that's because they didn't set up two
Plus
different
and minus don't work except as plus and
for
minus.
that. Because
Anyway.
numpad plus is a different key in the system. It has a key.
Yeah.
It's got a
That's
different
numpad plus.
Right. It's a
Where
different
normal
mapping.
plus just plus.
Yeah, I think it might be. I don't know.
So didn't
I don't
map
know.
Weird.
Well,
Whatever keyboard mapping you're using, you need to get control and then to the plus sign.
Yeah.
I'm happy to use Control Shift Plus as long as it works.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to overtake whatever discussions you had, Rocco.
So how about that low latency kernel?
Yeah, like wow, this is almost like the
Those things
single
are
click versus
great.
double click conversation.
Rocco, what do you
Hey
want?
man, if we're going low latency, we gotta go Draugr OS.
Oh man.
Don't associate with shifty characters.
Yeah, right.
That was perfect, Colin. That was perfect. No, I said if anybody has anything to bring up, bring it up because you know
Don't
that's what we're
say
here.
it.
That's what we're here for.
Because Linux is supposed to hurt.
And it hurt. Let me tell you.
So Rocco, we all move
Every
into
other OS. I mean, it's just.
What's
we
that,
all
Peter?
move into the office.
Okay, so that's the first thing I want to bring up. So, Manjaro made some waves this week with deciding that they were going to not ship LibreOffice as default in their release candidate. And they didn't do this for the main release that they have. This was in a release candidate. They went on to Jupiter Broadcasting, Linux Unplugged, and Phil was on, and he explained their decision of why they decided to go with a program called FreeOffice, which is made by SoftMaker, if anybody has heard of that. Years ago on Windows, I had a copy that I had paid for SoftMaker because it was one of those ones that actually worked. That was almost like Microsoft Word, but not Microsoft Word. So they decided that they were going to go with FreeOffice as the default. And one of the reasons why he stated that they were... Well, okay. Let me just put it out there. Off the top of it, what do you guys think of... And now, granted, this FreeOffice is proprietary software. So it's not open source. What do you guys think of that decision?
Do they have licenses to do that?
They were working with SoftMaker, the developer of FreeOffice, to include it in Manjaro's default.
As a user of
install it?
SoftMaker's Office, both the Pro from 2016 and the Free from 2019, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's good software.
As long as you uninstall it, I have no issues with it.
Yeah.
It was freely, it was easily uninstallable, and you could install LibreOffice. It just happened to be installed by default. And
I don't have a problem with it. I don't know. I understand there's some people who have really have a problem with proprietary software on Linux. I use Aftershock Pro, which is Corel's answer to Lightroom or whatever the Adobe is, and that's proprietary. I don't have a problem with it if it's a tool that I can use to get my job done, get my work done. And I think it's a very personal thing. Some people just have a problem with anything that's not free or that's proprietary.
My rule of thumb is typically if a proprietary tool will perform better or has features you have to have that you can't get in an open source version, or just for some odd reason works better for you, then go ahead and use a proprietary version. So I will use the proprietary NVIDIA drivers because I get better performance with them over the NoView drivers, just as an example. Beyond that, I tend to prefer open source software. So in my use case, I prefer LibreOffice over most other Office things because I can do everything I need to do in LibreOffice, and no other Office format other than occasionally Google Docs has any feature that I may need that LibreOffice does not have. The only thing Google Docs has that LibreOffice does not have is real-time collaboration. That's it.
To be honest, the main reason I went with SoftMaker is I have a couple of hundred sonnets that I've written that are in Word docs, and SoftMaker was the best integration with the doc format and docx format. It just worked better than LibreOffice, or I'd use LibreOffice. I'm just using what works best for me, and the mass of writing I already have that's already in the Windows formats.
That makes
I
sense.
have-
So I
I
think
have-
some of the
when you
Go ahead,
say it works better, how does it work better? I mean, is it that it keeps the formatting of a Word document as opposed?
It both pulls in the formatting better, keeps the formatting better, and I can save to the .doc or .docx formats and be able to pull up whatever formatting I put in. If I happen to be on a Windows system, I can pull up those documents that I saved from SoftMaker, and all the formatting that I put in on a Linux system will come up just fine on a Windows system in Office.
So for me, some of the issue is not so much the choice of choosing proprietary software. It's that it's installed by default, right?
Yep.
So when you installed what the NVIDIA drivers or whatever, you made a choice to do that on your own. Or even if you just downloaded it with the ISO, you knew that ahead of time, and so you agreed to that license yourself. But when it's installed already, I mean, isn't that like another step further?
I think a
Isn't
good
that the
compromise.
conflict of licensing?
Well, there's two chains of thought to that. One, that just like a distro installs Steam, for example, by default, nobody really gets upset at that, even though that is not open source software.
But they don't all do that. Some
No, they
give you
don't.
the installer, right? And so it's not actually installed. You click
Yeah.
on
It
it
does.
and install.
Manjaro
I
does.
think Steam makes you agree to a license before it installs completely.
Right.
Not on distros that install Steam by default.
And there are
Like,
some.
Yeah,
and there are
I've
some.
never
If
seen
you
that.
install that Manjaro, do you agree to the licensing when you're installing Manjaro or the first time you use the software?
I
Yeah,
would
but I
think that it has to be the first time you use the software.
Right. So, I mean, if you're deleting the software before you ever use it, then it's not an issue with licensing because you never even touched it.
Yep.
Well, go ahead, Colin.
Dark One's in chat, and I'd seen him mention earlier that they're making a Office Suite selection tool. I have to think that's on install, is it? I'm not sure. He didn't say.
Well,
certain.
that's the end result, and we'll get to that of what they decided
sorry.
to do.
Yeah,
But
I read that today somewhere.
I guess my point is, I had a conversation with a guy named Rob in Destination Linux Telegram channel this afternoon, and it was an awesome conversation. And he was, I actually didn't think the conversation was going to go well at the beginning because I had made the statement about Manjaro, and it kind of went the same theory that you're going with, Dan, where this is not only is it proprietary software, but the reason that he chose to run Linux was because Manjaro aligned with his views on open source software. And now because they switched, they no longer align with his views on open source software, and that's a big problem. And I think there were two things that really, it goes back to what we were talking about last week about communities or companies, distros, whatever, communicating with their users, because this wasn't the best communication example ever. They should have communicated with their community to say, this is what we're thinking of doing, and what do you think of it? And they might have heard maybe a lot less flaming than they did. They chose to do it this way. If you listen to the interview on Jupiter Broadcasting, you will see that somebody had made the statement that Phil is a dictator of Manjaro and he makes all the decisions. It wasn't a Phil decision. It was a Manjaro leadership decision, and they were trying to do the right thing by putting it out in a release candidate basically float the balloon to say, this is what we're trying to do. And it didn't go over very well. The community reacted somewhat bad, in my opinion. But it was a two-way street. They did a bad job of communicating their decision, and the community did a bad job of reacting to it. That's basically what I have.
At
Yeah, that's
least
fair. I mean, we've
I
talked
feel-
several times about how Linux doesn't do a great job of marketing and whatnot, and it's hard to do that. You need they don't have dedicated communication teams lots of times in these projects. They usually just have one guy that's sending out tweets or doing a blog post or something like that, and it doesn't always stretch to everyone like it needs to, maybe. So I can appreciate how that is difficult for the leadership to disseminate the information, and but I can also see how that would be frustrating a little bit for the users, and so bringing, like you said, they brought it out into a release candidate. That's actually not a release, so like a full-blown release. So
Nope.
it seems like an appropriate place to try something like that. Personally,
Well, I know some people have said that you probably shouldn't be trying it in a release candidate. You should have tried it in an alpha or a beta.
Okay.
But that's like, to me, in hindsight, I think the idea of what they did was a good thing. They were trying to better their distribution, okay? And they were also trying to establish a relationship with companies. Too many times we in the Linux community talk about, well, companies don't develop for Linux. They don't develop the software for Linux. And yet when we have a company that is actually developing software for Linux, and we have a distribution that goes and tries to build a working relationship with them, we scream that it's proprietary software, and then the end result basically that came out of this is that Manjaro is now kind of reversing their decision and not going to install FreeOffice by default. They are going to put a choice in the installer to say which one do you want to install, either FreeOffice or LibreOffice.
What about OpenOffice?
I don't know all of the choices, Chris. I just know that.
I'm just saying, OpenOffice seems to be left in the dust, and LibreOffice seems to have gotten, taken over the mantle of OpenOffice. And last I heard is that nobody really is liking OpenOffice because of doing something like what's been going on here. Not keeping up with the open source licensing.
So,
sorry, Rocco.
No, go ahead, Colin.
I had a problem just recently, whereas I've got a work colleague whose wife is running Linux Mint, and she brings documents home from work, was having some problems reading them in LibreOffice. So I was sort of looking for something else for them to try. And I think, I'm not sure what I told them, that may have been FreeOffice. I said maybe you could try download that and try it out. So there are some, LibreOffice in general works very well, except if you have those overcomplicated documents, then you may need something else. So I just thought I would put that out there, and maybe that's why they think it's worthwhile doing that. I'm not sure.
Well, one of the reasons that was stated for them trying this was it was like they didn't exchange any money with SoftMaker to have this happen. But what they did do was come up with an agreement that SoftMaker would work with them to make it absolutely compatible with Manjaro and Linux. And if they had any issues, SoftMaker would immediately take those issues up and work on fixing them. So they were working on a working relationship with a company, which is exactly what we need to have happen. Like I said, we all cry about software that's not available on Linux, and then when we try it, it's like people are upset. And I don't understand that concept.
It's a good point you raise, I must say.
Yep, it is a good point. Eris,
but here's the
oh, go ahead, Bash.
I was going to say, but here's the thing I think that maybe some people miss, because I work in a enterprise system that we do updates, and we let everybody know, because if we don't, they're all going to just freak out. I mean, people, a lot of times with change, people just freak out. They will. Me personally, I don't really care. But when you have a core piece of software like your Office suite, and you're changing that in a release candidate when you haven't talked about it, you don't have a blog post up about it, I can see why people reacted the way they did, because they're just like, why is this happening? What's going on? And they eventually got the message out there. But if you're going to do that, I feel like you need a blog post up at the, when that release candidate hits, so that people that are trying to figure out what's going on, they have a blog post there talking about it, talking about why they did it, talking about ultimately, the reasons for that, and, going into those details just like you did.
Vash, you are absolutely right. They did a poor job of communication, man.
Yeah, spot on.
I would like to point out a couple of things. First of all, Manjaro was never that afraid of doing proprietary software. It even stated that, because in some versions of Manjaro, they do install Steam, so that's already proprietary software. And also, truth be told, I don't think it's that of a problem, even without the selector, because if you don't open it, you can just reinstall something else. It isn't that you're locked in that software.
All right, Chris, welcome. You got your audio working, brother?
I think so. How's this
Yes,
sound?
perfect.
Hey, Chris.
Sweet. How's it going, guys? No, I saw this tonight. I was like, oh my God, I got to jump in this. I literally just finished making a video about this exact point. And sometimes when I've been on both sides of the coin, so I've seen it from the business perspective and I've seen it from the community perspective. Obviously now is more of a community perspective, but sometimes people mess up. And I think what everyone's missing here is how the company or the person that did this reacts, how they respond. And I've always loved Manjaro. I don't personally use Manjaro, and I've actually had some bad videos on my channel about Manjaro, but I absolutely love them from a distribution perspective, and I actually love them when it comes to Philip Mueller. Like, I was a nobody. I had like maybe 1,000 subs, and the guy literally sent me maybe 20 emails explaining certain things to me when I had questions. That kind of love and passion that that team has demonstrated, I think, is very commendable. And the fact that they reverse course so quickly, yes, there's definitely pressure from the community, but some companies just would completely disregard that and just continue trudging forward, whether it's for money, whether it might be for that. The fact that they care so much, I think, should be said. And that's one thing that, that's just how I feel about it. Even though from a distributions perspective, I don't use them, I still love Manjaro. I think what they do for the community is amazing. And I think the options they give for Arch-based distributions is a great thing, because there's a lot of noobs that can jump on Manjaro far before they can just a regular Arch install. So that's just my views on it.
I totally agree that they reacted well to it. But again, I go back to, they should have reacted better to begin with. They should have communicated better. And the community itself, and this was a big sticking point for me, because I took some feedback for this. But I was basically told that users are allowed to react to something any way they want to. And I don't think that's the case. I think as a community, we have a responsibility to act responsible, just like the distro developers have a responsibility to act responsible and communicate to each other, communicate with us as a community. And I just think it was an overall bad situation where the outcome at the end is very good. And I think if you looked on, if you guys seen on Twitter, SoftMaker themselves responded to one of the tweets about this situation, and they said that they were going to be working with Manjaro to include the problem that everybody has with it, that you can't save files. You can't export files without paying for it. So they were working to add that feature into the free version that was going to be installed. Would that have happened had Manjaro not made this decision to try it? I don't know.
Well, I just want to jump in here real fast. I would say that, one, I'm not sure that's true, but if it is, wow, that's super, super messed up. But I think as a community, it's important to call us out. Like, I love it when people call me out in the YouTube comments. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh my God, you actually read the YouTube comments. And I was like, yes, everyone. Well, most of them for the first day or two. But the fact is, when you have someone call you out and you have constructive criticism, the fact we said, hey, this is messed up, you should have given us the option. That really is our job as a community, is just say, hey, what the hell, man? And we have to do that. So I think the community responded appropriately. Yeah, there's some drama there. There's some people that really went over the top, but sometimes that's needed to get attention to the problem.
Well, I think it's a fine line between constructive criticism and going over the top. And I think some of it this week went over the top. Some of it was valid constructive criticism.
I think
So I have a question. What was the state of the free office? Was it like a trial? Was it supposed to be like limited features? That was
limited features is basically what you get. You get the Office suite. You can open documents and stuff, but you wouldn't be able to save or export in certain formats, which those formats you definitely need to have. And that's why I said, not confirmed 100%, but like I said, SoftMaker's Twitter account did say that they were adding that feature.
Did SoftMaker come out and actually write this software specifically for Linux?
It has been around in Windows for years. They basically made a Linux version of it.
Well, there you go. There's somebody that's interested in Linux, and we're not taking advantage of it.
Somebody
Instead, we're complaining about it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a valid point, and somebody's opinion of wanting just open source software on their distro is perfectly fine. But I guess my point is, if a distro makes this kind of decision, shouting to the rooftops and flaming people and doing other things that were done this week don't fix the problem. Speak with your mouth. Speak with your example, I should say. Uninstall the distro. Don't use it anymore. If that's what you feel strongly about, then you shouldn't use it. And there's nothing wrong, and that's a perfectly good choice to do, is to uninstall it if you don't like it.
That's what I was going to say. I think people really need to just, vote with their use. Like,
yes.
Use what you want to use and use things you believe in. And, if something violates that, then, well, you go elsewhere. There's enough distros to choose from, certainly.
That's true.
At the end of the day, it's your box. You can put in whatever you want.
What's the saying? Fix the problem, not the blame.
Yeah. So now talking about multiple distributions, and what I was starting to think of here is, will this license carry? I mean, let's say you buy. I mean, this is very much a shareware type of license, and let's say you buy it, and you want to try a different distro other than Manjaro. Is that license going to transfer over, or is it going to be killed once you uninstall Manjaro?
No idea. Not
Good
sure.
question.
All right. Is there anything else anybody wants to add about this? All right. So another topic. Well, Adam, I'm calling you out because you didn't speak on this.
He's hiding.
Yeah. He's purposely hiding.
Might be.
He even took his little face off too.
I think he dug a hole under his desk and
Yeah.
it's gone now.
All right. So another thing came up this week about it was actually a tweet by Liam from Gaming on Linux about a screenshot that he took from a review of a Linux game that was Steam Early Access. And this reviewer basically said the game is not complete and gave it a thumbs down. And it kind of is ridiculous if you think about it, because it's an early access game. But my thing is, I think we need to come up with a new term for the whole early access game, because a lot of people are thinking that early access game means complete game, but you get early access to it, and not the fact that it's a not complete finished game and they're letting you try it. So we've skipped the beta now and went to early access, which pretty much means the same thing. And I want to know what you guys think of this.
I had some experience with this because I used to write some articles for some website that did game reviews here in Slovenia. So we had just this discussion: what is beta, what is early access, and at the end we came to the conclusion that every company, every developer defines its own definition of these words, because there isn't many that would like define it. But as the guy who was our leader said, beta is before it's released, but mostly features are in. Early access should be when all the features are in, but people get early access to see what is game, to get the hype up. That's what I consider early access. If the game is officially early access, if it doesn't have all the features, it gets thumbs down from me as well. So that's my opinion.
It's a demonstration.
So I don't think we should be so negative on the early access thing, because it's not just a matter of testing bugs and things like that you normally find in like beta or alpha or whatever. It's a matter of testing the game design as well. Like certain aspects of the game might be fundamentally broken from a gameplay perspective, like say a weapon is too powerful or a level is too hard, or something like that, and easing the people who are in early access into these different mechanics, into these changes, is better for the people who wait, because then these, not only these like software bugs and things that we normally think of in betas, but actually the gameplay bugs and such that come part of the game will be ironed out by the time it's fully released. So I mean, it's just you're paying money, generally a little less than the full price, to basically test the gameplay itself and the mechanics and such before everybody else, and that's a good thing. I mean, I don't see any issue with that at all.
I don't see an issue with the whole early access scenario. I kind of have an issue with the way it's portrayed as... It's not portrayed that way. I shouldn't say it's portrayed that way. It's not crystal clear that this is not a complete game.
Usually is, actually. There's usually a pretty big banner that says this is an early access game. And
well, yes, but like I said, you're thinking of it from a normal user. Okay, I buy this game on Steam. I install it. There's an early access warning label that comes up that says this is early access and not feature complete. I'm going to blow right by that.
Okay, so that's not really the game's fault. It's not the publisher's fault.
No, I'm not saying it's the publisher's fault. I'm saying that I think it needs to be somehow redone so that it is crystal clear, because it's like saying, well, you should have read the manual. Well, 90% of the people are not going to read the manual. It's EULA license. You should have read the EULA license because it's in there, but 99% of the people are not going to read the EULA license.
I think it's more like
bad analogies.
I think it's more like a high voltage sign. Like, you should probably pay attention to this big yellow high voltage sign before touching something. And it's the same thing. There's a big yellow and gold, whatever color, early access banner, and it's like, oh, I don't need to read that. And then,
I think what's happening. I think a lot of people have been conditioned by like certain games, like Ark and stuff that come out and they've been out for so long in early access, and everyone's playing it already, and it releases expansions and stuff while it's in early access. Like, once you get to that point, it's like, okay, what is early access really? And
I think software has very confusing terms for all this. Like how long it was G-parted, not in 1.0. It became 1.0 recently. How long have we been using that? And 1.0 is to signify that it's not usable really until that point. And like Gmail, how long was Gmail in beta? And everybody kept using Gmail for everything.
Yeah.
All these terms are very muddy. It's not very clear. And I think some people feel, because like others have said, some games seem feature complete, seem like everything's there, and you can play everything. There's nothing that really seems like something's missing. So it gives you the false promise that it is full and complete, but it's not. So I think I think that comes into it, and then people have high expectations that are not realistic for some software.
I don't know about Valve games or Steam games, but I know like on Android here, I'm looking at a pre-release game right now, and it says like right underneath the install button, this app is in development, and it's impossible to miss that. So if you had something like that, typically in these scenarios, I think that would be good. Or if you clicked on that, it literally said it in bold letters, just this app is in development, proceed with caution. Something like that where it is impossible not to see this. And if they do, proceed with their own caution, and you have moderators, the moderators could take this down if it's right there blatantly that it says this is in development, and if you're discounting this game because it's in development and you said it's not complete, your review is kind of invalid at that point because it's been said this is in development. It's not complete. You've been told this. So at that point, why are you rating it like that?
I mean, and other people, I guess, have suggested like, maybe they should, moderate those sort of reviews in a different way or something. And I think it might be good to treat like early access reviews a little bit differently than reviews for fully released games, I guess, because really they should be treating any of those reviews prior to the release as like feedback to the developers.
Right.
And I mean, I'm glad that Steam makes it available publicly because it's nice for people to be able to see what they are getting in early access.
Yeah.
But I don't think that should contribute to their rating or anything like that drives sales, based on.
Does anybody know how that review process is? Is it a different option? Are there different options for your review on an early access game than there are on a regular release game? Or should there be? Maybe. Should there be?
I believe I was once rating one early access game and it was no difference, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they do tag all early access reviews as early access, though. But I don't know how that counts as into their, overall rating and things like that. That I'm not sure about. But I mean, I was just looking back at a store page, and it clearly comes up and says early access game before you even get to the button to add it to your cart.
Yep. Well, again, I think it's just, for me personally, I think it's just the whole early access thing is like blurred, because there are some games that are really good in early access and there are some games that are bad in early access. And, it's kind of like pretty much there are so many games out there that come out in early access that you kind of expect it to happen. And
I will say when it comes to early access, like, I think maybe we're overthinking this, maybe just a hair, because really when a game's good or a product's good and it goes to early access, if the foundation is there, the game's going to do well. Like take PUBG, for instance, which I think it finally made it out of early access. It might still be early access. I don't even know. That game just killed in early access. They made so much money that it literally just propelled that company. I think Bluehole was who runs it. That's a good one. And also like Gmail, it just blew up in early access. I was one of the very early Gmail users, and it just was such a good product that it just doesn't matter. Now, some games I think that just sit in early access forever. Like let's take Steam's Days game. It's a crappy game. There's no amount of work they could put into the game to really make that appeal to the mainstream. It's just a really wonky, weird, buggy game, and there's no way they could ever stomp all that out. So I think it just depends on the product. And some things in early access, yes, they're good. Some are bad. And really, I think that's what early access is for. So the company knows, hey, I don't need to put any more capital in this game. They might continue on for a little bit. And where it really gets dodgy to the end consumer is if it's a really bad product and someone pays for it and they don't refund them their money when the game just sucks. That's the risk of early access. And as a consumer, how do we protect ourselves from that example?
Yeah.
But in the same token,
well, I think in that case you read the warnings and don't buy the game.
Yeah.
Well, I think,
and honestly, if a game is in early access, I think that an early access game should not be pay to play. It should be free because you're basically being asked to beta test this. You're putting up with bugs and performance issues. Why should you have to pay for that? So,
well, I have no
but-
problem with paying for an early access game. You know, because you know going in that you're going to be paying for it. It's not like it's a surprise.
Like I could understand paying less than what it was released for. So, for instance, Skyrim, you could buy it for like $40 to $60 depending on what platform and when. I could understand if you somehow got access to an early access version of that back in the day, paying 10 to 20.
Early access
Because-
games, by and large, are cheaper than the release. They usually
Yes.
bring up the price
Okay.
of release.
Okay, I didn't know this, so
Well,
I can understand that more.
The other thing I want to bring up about early access is that there are games that I think that it hurts, and maybe it's the developer's decision to go early access with the game. But like, for example, there's a game of World War II Normandy, and this was actually a realistic World War II shooter, which I thought was a great game. It went to early access. Some people played it, and to me, the way a lot of gamers are today, that if it's not absolutely awesome and there's a billion people on the servers playing, they're just going to move on. And that's basically what happened to this game, where it was an awesome game, and yet you can't find anybody on the servers now playing it. So there's my 2 cents. Anybody else have anything before I move on? All right. I'm going to rant for a minute, and maybe some of you guys, Colin, Chris, Steve, you guys that make videos can help me out, because I've been using Kdenlive for editing videos for years, and it's always been a little bit buggy, okay? But it has been the most feature-rich editor that I've used. Now, granted, I don't use something like DaVinci Resolve, or because I didn't not going to be paying that money for it. But I have had more issues with the latest release of Kdenlive than I've had in a long time. And it has, last week when I edited Linux Spotlight, it probably crashed 15 to 20 times while I was editing this video. And it recovered each time, but again, I go back to I'm having issues with Kdenlive, and I need some alternatives. So help me out.
Well, my first question is, which one were you using? AppImage, Flatpak?
AppImage.
AppImage. I'm using the Flatpak. Seems to be better than the AppImage.
Well, they recommend on Kdenlive's website to use the AppImage, as that's their go-to thing. I updated the AppImage to the latest one, and that didn't help as far as crashing. And I tried to go back to the 1804 one, I think it was. And of course, now my projects are too new, so they're not compatible with 1804.
So you're on the 1904.3. You're definitely
Yes.
using your
Dot-
.3. And
dot 3.
So I was going to use the Flatpak on the AppImage, on Zorin this week. But I decided to install the Flatpak instead, and I haven't had one crash on that. So I don't know if there's a difference between the two. I don't know.
I have a question. This maybe sounds a little strange, but with Kdenlive, you used to, do they no longer have it where you can just get it from the repository, or you have to use AppImage or Flatpak or?
It usually, if it is, I don't know if it's in the regular Ubuntu repository, but if it is, it's an older version than what you get.
17.12, Rocco. I think it was on Zorin, which is the 1804.
Yeah,
so 17.
I actually have Kdenlive installed 3 times on my system, so.
Why is that, Chris? I don't understand.
So I have it installed, AppImage, Flatpak, and then I also have the repository. Now I'm running Debian SID, so it's actually pretty darn up to date as far as the repository. If you're running Debian stable,
Heck, I don't even think that's on version 19 yet. So as far as the crashes, though, it really depends how you're editing and how many clips are in there. I find breaking up the clips a whole bunch and then being very wary about clicking too much on your timeline. Like, I try really not to do much. I do everything through hotkeys, and my mouse rarely goes above the timeline to click an effect or anything like that. And the only time I do is usually when I'm pulling from my favorites and it's like an obscure effect or something like that. But it is maddening when you lose a project. I've had it where I've worked like an hour on edits and I had it crash and I didn't save the project at all, and I opened it back up and it didn't recover anything. So that is also a possibility, and you'll probably want to kill somebody. But
Control S is your friend.
Sure. But I did find also that AMD video cards and how you're rendering also depends on that as well. So like I find AMD is just so much more stable on Linux, period, that NVIDIA cards, and when you have proprietary drivers from like NVIDIA in certain video editing previews and stuff like that, that's when I think a lot more people have more crashes, because I've gone completely AMD and I don't have nearly many crashes. I've gone, I make a video every day, and I've gone probably 6 days without a crash now, just to give you an idea. And I'm
That's
usually
amazing.
a couple hours every day, and I'm all AMD. So there's something to be said for that.
Well, I am running NVIDIA 2080, and the NVIDIA proprietary drivers are installed. It's just very, very, very frustrating when you're trying to get a project done and it just continually crashes on you. I have tried to, like, I actually downloaded a few other video editors to try them out. I did download DaVinci Resolve to see how that was going to work, but it's not going to allow me to import MKV files unless I pay for it, which I'm not going to do that. That's $299, I think. I downloaded Shotcut, and that actually is a pretty decent editor, with the exception of, and I was playing around with it, and I ended up finding how you can use keyframes to adjust the volume, and because it wasn't immediately there in my mind as far as how to do that, but I ended up finding that. But the problem I had with it is extremely slow on my system, and it shouldn't be. But like, if I make a edit, I'll have to wait 10 seconds for the program to react to allow me to hit another button or make another edit, and that was extremely frustrating. I got like halfway through the video and I'm like, no, I can't do this. I just can't. So is there any other suggestions on alternatives? Are there any alternatives?
Olive.
I did check out Olive, not this week, but previous weeks I tried Olive, and it is also a promising editor. Right now it only has one video transition, which is...
That is the one thing I think.
I just can't do that right now, that's all. I mean, it looks like it's going to be great, but until that stuff is added, I can't work with it.
So, like, I've actually done a lot of things. Like, I initially really, really wanted DaVinci Resolve to work, and I really hate DaVinci Resolve.
Well, but AMD is not really good on DaVinci Resolve.
It doesn't work at all, is the short of it. But yes, so I would go, probably Lightworks is the next step for me. Like Kdenlive, I absolutely love, and it for the most part does the job. But as I've looked for more powerful editing, I think Lightworks is my next step. However, that's expensive. It's several $100s, but I think that's really my next go-to move from Kdenlive. I think that's really it's so feature rich, and I've seen a lot of videos explaining like tutorials and things. It's just another piece of software I'll have to learn that I don't know if I'm quite ready for that, but that's what I'm planning to do.
Steve, what do you think about this?
Steve's muted.
There you go. Kind of asking the wrong guy. Why do you think I do a lot of live streams? I mean, I just do simple 3D color and throw it up there. I was using Flowblade for a while. Unfortunately, because of the hours that I work and that I'm limited on what I can do in post as far as getting like really fancy. I had not gotten into Kdenlive much. I downloaded it, was going to start using it, and unfortunately, making super fancy videos aren't in my repertoire.
Rocco, you said you tried Shotcut, right?
Yes.
What about OpenShot? I think it just had an update.
I actually haven't tried OpenShot.
Don't use OpenShot. Do not use OpenShot. Do not. Period. Once you get over a certain size, it crashes, and it crashes hard. Yeah. And I used to use OpenShot a lot, and I loved it. And then once things got over a certain length, it was just like, nope.
And it doesn't matter what you've got in terms of resources on your computer. I mean, I'm sitting here on a machine that's got, 32 gig of RAM. It didn't care, and it crashed. Yeah. So I was having the same problem.
Well, that's one thing that I am looking for is something that actually has like hardware rendering support, especially with the NVIDIA card that I have. I mean, it would make it so much better if it would actually work, make the render time so much faster.
You're running Pop OS or Zorin or
Pop OS. Pop OS, dude. It's the best one out there. Best distro out there. Come on.
That's what I thought you were running. I would try running the Deb, because while the Deb of Kdenlive isn't quite as good as the app image of the Flatpak, is usually a version or two behind. It may not be as new as you are needing, but it's still worth a shot if you haven't tried it yet, because it may be right at that sweet spot that you're needing. I don't know. I haven't used Kdenlive in a while, but I would still say if you haven't tried it, it's worth a shot.
That's what I asked before. If you're using the Deb one from the repositories as opposed to the app image, because that's what I have and it works. That doesn't crash on me.
What were you going to say, Colin?
I do a whole lot of stuff. I don't do a whole lot of stuff.
Right.
I was going to say what Thomas was saying, that you cannot go back in versions because you have certain templates or something that don't work in the older version. So
yeah, well, I basically would have to redo the whole. Like what I end up doing is like Linux Spotlight. I made that template, and then each version, all I basically do is replace the video files with. All the trailers and everything stay the same, and I just replace the main track of the video file and edit it from there. So everything's set up from each episode, which makes it so much better to actually get finished. But I ended up having to go and do that with Kdenlive this week for Linux Spotlight. I had to go in and redo the whole template and start from scratch, right. And it was painful. Just saying.
Well, my confession is I'm scared of using Kdenlive even though I use it, because if I just do anything, some small thing with the mouse and something goes missing off the timeline, I'm thinking, oh my God, did I save?
Well, I can make Kdenlive crash on command. All you have to do is basically click on the timeline and hit Control-Z more than 4 times, and it will immediately crash, guaranteed.
Well, that used to be with undo. I think if you undo about 6 or 7 times, it would crash as well, I think.
Yep.
There's a couple more, Rocco. I haven't tried any others, but Flowblade and Cinderella, whatever you want to call it. But there's a Cinderella. I don't know what that's like.
There's a pro version, and then there's a community version. I downloaded it. I've never really used it. There's a lot to it. But Flowblade, Flowblade is relatively simple. It's not as full-packed as like Kdenlive. Does nice transitions and things like that. It was fit my needs. That's why I was using it.
I haven't tried Lightworks.
Well, I'll probably try Lightworks, and maybe we'll find a coupon code or something for it.
I know you can do video editing in Blender. I just don't know how.
Blender is like the scariest program ever made. I'm just saying. You open that thing, and I am completely lost.
And you make one change in the settings in that, and it's like, oh, where'd it go?
So,
no,
Chri- uh,
Your system though.
You can do
Chris-
simple video editing with FFmpeg.
FFmpeg? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
From the command line.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
But you got to get your codes all in the right order.
Yeah.
And it will render way faster because I've actually resorted to that where it would take like 3 hours to render something, and with just FFmpeg it was 10 minutes or less.
Well, Blender just came out with a new release, but I am like deathly afraid of trying it. Just saying.
I've tinkered with
How
it.
do you
a few
feel
times,
about the future where AI edits all your videos?
Yeah.
And you
well,
just don't have to worry about it anymore.
right.
You could try an online video editor because I know they exist, but they're probably terrible.
They're probably terrible, Thomas.
Yeah.
so Lightworks doesn't have a like a trial version or anything like that, or Chris, do you know if they've got a trial version or?
They do have a free version, but it has limitations. Like I think the highest resolution you can export is like 720p, things like that.
Okay, yeah.
The 720p is the big thing. So I would say install it, do like a sample video in 720p just to see if you actually enjoy its workflow. Because a lot of those, any video editor I try, there's always such a different workflow from one to the next that it's almost maddening. And you got to figure out which one works for you. But Lightworks looks like the one that I'll probably jump to from Kdenlive when I need to take my videos up to like that professional style where it would go and compete with like an Adobe Premiere as far as crazy effects and things like that, which I don't even know if I'll ever do that. I might by that time just be like, no, forget it.
Yeah.
What's wrong with iMovie?
Right?
iMovie.
Do Mac people even use iMovie?
I don't know. Adam, do they?
Let me see. Not any, well, yeah, they've got it, but it's like really slow.
Yeah, because
To render takes forever.
it's a pretty painful thing.
Very painful.
Yeah.
I've done
Cannot-
it sits on my Mac and I don't use it.
I cannot believe it. I cannot believe we didn't think of this, guys.
What?
Rocco, you dual boot Windows Movie Maker.
I knew it was coming.
I love it. I love it.
You won't be able to take advantage of a low latency kernel.
Thanks, Thomas.
How to get it
Or
in.
does it have one clicker? Do double clicker.
Nah, dual booting is for games, not for video editing.
Right.
Well, that's
If you're
still
going to do it for video editing, then you have to try boot so you can get the Mac OS in there with the iPad.
Yeah, but he needs the Mac
Hackintosh
first
that.
unless he's gonna have a Hackintosh.
Yeah. All right, Joshua, you wanted to bring up something? Joshua.
Joshua, you alive?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. Internet's beginning to lag out. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so I mentioned on Discourse on Rebecca BlackOS, I classify distros in 2 different ways. And I want to talk about that because real briefly, because I feel like that I see distros from a different perspective as everyone else does. So let's begin with the average distro. This is like Debian, Fedora, Mageia. They're all Linux distros. They're just there to be a distro. There's nothing big about it. There's no big new tweak or anything about it. It's just an operating system. But ones like Zorin or Linux Mint on the hand, they have a feature such as a desktop or a made software to go with it. And that is the ones I kind of look for. So that's kind of how I classify them, because a lot of the times when I just search for distros on DistroWatch, I always check for changes of new desktops and new software and making sure that the themes are up to date, so it doesn't look like 2009 themes, so it will suit me and make me happy.
Okay.
Well, I mean, when it comes to distributions, I mean, all the I always say, and probably everybody's going to throw tomatoes at me now, but I always say distribution's just a starting place. Like, it doesn't matter what distribution I'm on. I have Arch out here, Debian as my main production machine, and then my laptop is Fedora. It's just a different package manager. Everything else can just be added to whatever distribution's there for the most part. I can't even think of one software I'd use that I can't put on all 3. And honestly, all 3 look almost identical. The only reason I can tell them apart is because I changed my desktop wallpaper to have the big icon. So I know, oh crap, I'm on APT. Okay, cool. So that's my package manager on my Debian machine. And yeah, so I would never go after distributions just to get a wallpaper or a theme. I think there's so many cool things where you can just go download them, and that's how
Adam,
I read it.
Adam, do you have any tomatoes we can throw?
Strawberries?
I'm more of a kumquat kind of guy.
Well, we can throw fruit too. Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll say
Tomatoes
this-
are fruit, so.
Oh yeah.
About what Chris said about apt and other package managers, it's also what kind of makes up a distro. And it's one of the things that when you're trying to pick that perfect distro, it's all basically the same thing. It's the question is, what package manager is it? You know, do I like it? Do I think it's slow? Is it efficient for me? Do I really like it? And then you add everything up and then you get your conclusion. I personally ended up with Ubuntu, which was more or less my home operating system.
Perfect distro is an oxymoron, though.
Yeah, there isn't one out there. I'm sorry. It's same way with desktop environments. It's not there.
We don't classify macOS as a distro, so
Wow.
no, it doesn't
That's
exist.
an OS.
Wow, dude.
Hey,
No, but
we just don't deal with macOS. It's easier that way.
Yeah, there you go.
except
No.
for me, I use it. Yeah,
but going to your point,
but it's
Chris,
not my main thing.
about the distro doesn't matter. I think it depends on who you are. I mean, obviously, somebody that has the technical ability to install whatever software they need to fix whatever problems they have on a given distro, no, it doesn't really matter. But if you're not that technical person, I think the distribution does matter because you're not going to be capable of handling those issues. Like if you're running Arch, you have to be willing to maintain Arch as you're running it, and that's not always easy for everybody.
Yeah, I would say education is obviously the sticking point here. And why I always kind of do that spiel is really to get people thinking about that, because a lot of people I see jump from like an Ubuntu to Pop! OS or an Ubuntu to Kubuntu or something in the same family, and really the changes they would need to make to effectively have the same distribution is so small and menial. Like some of these distributions, I mean, you're splitting hairs between them. And I find people waste so much time reinstalling a distribution when they could have just learned that one thing they needed to know to really make that distribution go for them. And that's what I try to get at is don't look for the perfect distribution. Always look for what problem does this distribution have for me? Can I fix it? If I can't, what distribution wouldn't have that problem? And also look for why you can't fix that problem, because a lot of times just simple education, and that's one thing I always aim to do is educate people on it. And that's why I never focus on distribution, because I find every solution, every problem I've ever had in any Linux distribution is solvable usually it's always just a simple, usually 5-minute fix if you know what's wrong. And
Right.
Going to your point, some people just can't figure that out, and I get that. And
They can't figure it out, and they don't want to. They just want it to. Okay, and everybody knows, they've heard me say this before. When I use Ubuntu, Mate is my daily driver. I also have one computer that's sitting there using OpenSUSE with XFCE, and I like that. And I have Solus on another laptop. But anyway, I just want to be able to turn it on and it works. And I don't want to have to deal with, and I know how to fix it if I have to, but I don't want to do that. And then there are people that they just want to turn it on and it works and it's going to update and whatever, because they've got other things they want to do with that. It's like it's an appliance almost. I want it to stay out of my way. I have a way I like it to work. And I can get almost any distro to work the way to look the way I want it, except KDE Plasma.
I could get KDE Plasma to look like you wanted it, Barb.
Oh, I know, but it just doesn't work the way my brain works. That's what the problem is, honestly. But I mean, to worry about which package manager it has, OpenSUSE uses Zipper. Whoopee. That really shouldn't necessarily be the driving force of what it is. Does it stay out of my way? Is it stable enough? Does it work? Can I get what I need done? And that's how I am. And I agree about you can get any distro. If it's Ubuntu based, well, you've got a gazillion different things you can put on to get it to look or work the way you want it, or for any of the others.
Well, you brought up Zipper, and I completely forgot that Nate, who loves OpenSUSE, sent me his he sent me his stuff on Telegram about his thoughts on Zorin, and I completely forgot about him. So it's a little bit late now. Sorry, Nate, but just saying, I forgot. Blame my old age on that.
And I just want to confirm, Rocco, did Chris actually say that we should stick to one distro? Did Chris say that?
I don't think he realized everybody here likes to distro hop.
Distro hop is anonymous.
Well,
hey, I'm fine with distro hopping. I'm just saying.
He is merely encouraging us to distro hop without ever changing the base.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
I would say when it comes to distros, like if you can distro hop and you can be efficient doing it, hey, more power to you. I just see some people waste like 3 or 4 hours switching distros to have the same package manager and then literally just have almost everything the same. It's just they had like some different system pieces.
Including the problem.
Including the problem. Yeah, they'll go right to another one and go, oh, crap, this is exactly the same issue I was running. So, I'm saying, I don't say you have to stick on the same distribution. And if you do distro hop often, obviously learning how to take your home folder, learning how to take your configs so you can distro hop within an hour. That's fine. That's fine. I just don't want people wasting hours of time because they run into one issue, because all of the Linux distributions have at least an issue, some more than others.
No, I agree with what you say, Chris. To be honest, you should stick with the one distro. Just not the people on Biddle. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, we all hop, so you don't have to.
Right? See, Dan, that's exactly right.
Well, and some of us, where others like to play Rocket League and whatnot, some of us actually find enjoyment in installing and provisioning operating systems.
Dave,
yeah.
Who doesn't like to play Rocket League? Thank you.
Never played it.
Never played
it. That's why. That's why you don't like it, because you've never played it. If you played it, you would be playing Rocket League.
I'd love to play it, but
I'm in the middle of playing Doom right now. I don't have time for Rocket League.
Did I mention Rocket League's native to Linux? Did I mention that?
Did I mention that the Proton version runs better?
Are you sure?
Seriously? Does this seriously run better?
No,
yeah,
it doesn't.
With D9VK in the newest Proton, it runs significantly better than the native version.
That's actually very surprising, but okay.
All right. Does anybody else have anything they want to bring up?
Nope.
Well, I'm not going to talk about zooming text in a terminal, that's for sure.
No, that would be lame to bring that up.
I could talk about development stuff with Draugr OS, but I'm pretty sure nobody here cares.
Okay, that's it for the show. We are out of
here. We'll be right back.
All right. So, to sum up everything, we are trying out Endeavor OS for the next 2 weeks. So, download it, check it out, and we'll get feedback next week and the following week. All right.
And you can all, for at least 1 week, say, by the way, I run Arch.
There you go.
Or 2 weeks.
For the second time.
I run Ubuntu, so.
This one will probably be easier than the Arch vanilla install we did. Just saying.
Yeah.
Or Arch ran me over.
Well, I did use the Arch5 script, so I cheated.
Of course you did.
This will be fun, too.
Just remember my experience with Entergos. I don't want to do
it. Won't be that bad, Barb. It won't be that bad.
It won't eat my grub and...
And I want to say about that whole thing is when we tried Entergos, it was at a bad time for Intergos. Intergos over the years seemed to go in like ups and downs where it worked perfectly and then it didn't work perfectly and it didn't work at all. And I think we ended up trying it in an off time and it was in a bad situation. And like, I think that was one of our worst reviews that we ever did on a distro. And I had run Intergos for months before that and didn't have an issue. So I think we just got it at a bad time.
Yeah, it was very bad.
It is a completely different installer, Barbara.
Okay. I can't guarantee that. Maybe I'll just look at it on a live USB. That might be my thing.
Just letting you know, it's completely different.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Everybody gets a last word. Dan.
Thanks, Rocco, and thanks to everyone here on Zoom and everybody watching on YouTube. It's been a lot of good discussion, and thoroughly enjoyed it. And look forward to trying Endeavor.
Joshua, last word.
Thanks again, Rocco and Dan, for hosting the show. I always love everyone coming together to all be friends. I really enjoyed it. I'll be excited for Draugr, obviously overhyped by Thomas, who opened his... Stop smirking. Okay. As I was saying, I'm excited for it. And yeah, I'll see you all next week.
All right. Peter, last word. Hold on. You are muted, sir.
The best part of Peter.
There you go.
Okay. Someone must have muted me. Okay. I forgot to mention last week that 2 weeks ago I turned 20 years at my workplace, and in their newsletter they gave me a spotlight. Actually, it was the first time I was ever in the newsletter, and they mentioned Linux. They mentioned BigDaddyLinux. All that stuff is in there, and it was great that my workmates and all my contacts media got to read that. Huh?
That's pretty awesome, dude.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome, yeah.
And I put a link. I put a link into the YouTube.
Dig it. Vash, last word.
Thanks for the stream as always, and we will see y'all next week on Arch, I guess.
Harris, last word.
Thank you for the show. I also want to thank everybody on Telegram for the kind words. The past month has been kind of rough for me, but those words did help a lot, and thank you very much again.
Great to see you back, Harris.
Tony. How are you, Tony?
Hello, sorry. I was busy trying to install the distro challenge on the laptop, which it's failed twice.
In the middle of the stream. Really?
Well, I'm not using that machine for this, so it's okay.
Okay.
But
last word, brother.
Memories of Antigos, which also would not install, but actually doing it now.
I'm glad to hear that.
We'll see. Anyway, sorry, I digress. Last word. Usual for me. Thank you, Rocco, for doing this every week. And next week is going to be even worse. I mean, sorry, better, because there'll be a double portion. It was fun. And I'll see you next week.
Dig it. Thomas?
Well, thanks for allowing me back on this week despite all my eccentricities.
Dan's the one that let you in, dude. I don't know what happened.
Shouldn't have done that, Dan.
I'm sure I'll get fired.
Nah, I think you're fine. It's only once.
Yeah.
Rocco's done it. What, how many times now? But yeah, always fun. I greatly appreciate getting to be on here because all you guys are awesome. Looking forward to Endeavor OS. I don't think I've ever tried Antigos, so I'm kind of going into this blind, not really knowing what to expect. And yeah.
Dig it. Colin, last word.
Well, I will endeavour to get this week's challenge up and running, Rocco, and maybe downloaded. See how we go with that with the internet across the pond here. Always good. Always good being here, Rocco. Dan, Zeb, Dan? No, it's Dan, isn't it? That's right.
Yeah, this week.
Yeah.
No beard. He doesn't have a beard.
No beard.
Thanks for filling. No beard. Thanks for filling in,
That's
Dan.
hair.
And thanks, Rocco. Always enjoyed being here. See you guys next week.
Kevin.
Hey, thanks Rocco for hosting. Thanks Sauron Os for doing something truly different with GNOME. Thanks to everyone for watching. And Zeb and Eric, we're expecting souvenirs when you get back.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
Adam.
Well, thank you, Dan, for putting this on. We couldn't do this without you. All credit goes to you. But thanks for the show, guys. It's been real. For those of you who didn't know, Steam, new Proton, they got good stuff. Try it out.
Barbara, last word.
Okay, I want to thank you, Rocco and Dan, for this was an interesting, fun time this week, and I actually downloaded FreeOffice after our discussion, and I'm going to take a look at it out of curiosity. So, I mean, I don't mind using proprietary software, so I'm just one of those. But thank you, everybody, and I don't know if I'm going to be checking out Endeavor OS, especially after what Tony just said.
All right. Dan Kelly, last word.
Thank you, Dan and Rocco, for putting on such a great show tonight. Thank you, everybody here that showed up and all the people in the chat that's watching the show. We're happy to have everybody here. And thank you for having me on the show, Rocco.
Dave, sir.
Thank you, Rocco. Thank you, Dan. Thank you to the developers of Sauron OS. It is an incredible feat that you have pulled off. And it has been a pleasure to be here for the official inauguration of Rocco's Ranting Corner.
It was fun.
This has been a couple ranting weeks, hasn't it? Sorry.
Rocco's ranting show.
I'll do better.
You
Chris.
should've gone on vacation with Zeb.
Chris, last word.
So, speaking of
Malta's
Zeb,
nice this time of year.
speaking of Zeb and Eric, Godspeed. Hope that they have a safe trip home. And Dan, you did a great job in filling in for Zeb. Thank you. Rocco, thanks for hosting. The randomness is always wonderful. I think we stripped a couple gears there, shifting some subject to subject. But hey, that's we distro hop, so we shift from subject to subject. I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway, I'm taking a week off from my paying job, so I might actually produce some videos like I keep promising everybody. But now that I'm hearing that there's been problems with Kdenlive, I don't know if I'll be able to, because that's kind of what I was hoping to use. But we'll see. But then we also have the distro to check out, so maybe I'll try putting it through its paces with editing. Talk to you guys next week.
Steve, last word.
All right, thanks everybody. Thanks, Rocco. Peter, when you get to 38 years, give me a call, okay? Might just be in the chat next week. I go on vacation on Thursday. I'll be up in Wisconsin. Going to try to do a meet with Joe Panico.
Nice.
So
nice.
Hopefully we can see that. So everybody, you have a good rest of your Saturday now.
Big Pod, last word.
Thank you for having me. And Rocco, just want to check. Next week is Europe edition.
Let's see. What is next week? Next week is the second Saturday of the month. So yes, August 10th is Middle Europe at 3 p.m.
9 p.m. CST. So who are from Europe, be there. Maybe you won't have to be there in the middle of the night like I'm here.
It's a great shout, Big Pod. Great shout.
Thanks again. That's it.
Chris, last word, brother.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me on. It was good to finally actually jump on one of these and kind of be able to chat with y'all. I've been meaning to do it for a while, but usually this time of night's bad for me. But now that I got kind of segregated says great, but thank you, Rocco. Thanks. Congrats to Joshua for 20 years at a job. That's amazing. And one last question for Rocco. Thinking about a CyberPower PC. What are your thoughts?
Wow, dude, you didn't have to go there. That was so wrong. That was totally wrong. I mean, I have a few words for you, but that was totally wrong.
It wouldn't be family friendly then, right?
Corner is still
Well,
open.
I was going to say you're welcome back anytime, Chris, but I don't know.
So the rest of us will tell you you're welcome back anytime.
Yeah, somebody came prepared. First time in a while.
I love it. All right. I want to thank the Zorin developers for all of the hard work they put into Sauron Os. We don't say thank you enough in the Linux community, so I want to definitely say thank you very much. Check out Middle Europe next week at 3 p.m., and then we will have our normal show at 8 p.m. You'll have to figure out what time zone that is for you, but it will be 3 and 8 p.m. EDT. All right. We will be checking out Endeavor OS, and join us in the Discourse or the Telegram or the Discord or however way you want to get a hold of us, but we have like a billion ways to talk to you. All right. That'll be it for this week. Everybody have a great week, and remember, long live Linux.
Yay.
Good night, everybody.
Amen.
Take care.
Adios.
Good night.
Good night.
Live long and prosper.